Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to Future Fashion. This is the last in our series this year that we've been doing since February, where we've been interviewing someone different from the sustainable fashion world and kind of asking the question, is this the future of fashion? My name's Amisha Ghadiali and I've been working in sustainable fashion for 6 years now, and kind of one of my passions within it is getting the message out there and kind of helping kind of everyday shoppers figure out how and where this makes sense in their own wardrobes. So I'm delighted to be joined by Orsola de Castro tonight, who is one of the leaders of the sustainable fashion movement, known as the Queen of Upcycling. She's been recycling for 15 years, since 1997. And as well as all of that, like her passion and dedication to actually changing the industry led her to be one of the co-founders of Estethica, which is the ethical area of London Fashion Week. So absolutely delighted to have you with us tonight. So
From somewhere is completely accidental. In fact, my upbringing and my training is in fine art and printmaking. So at the time, there was a rather directional shop in London called The Cross. This was 1996, 1997. And I used to sell printed textiles there, as well as I used to sell these very conceptual crocheted hats. I used to make crochet my emotions on each hat, and then I hope that if people wore them close to their brains, they could inherit. So I had this sense of poetry, of wanting to pass things on. However, from somewhere comes from my grandmother's jumper that had to be worn that night. Absolutely had to be worn for some super fancy event that I was going to. I think it was the Turner Prize, but I can't remember. And I had to wear that jumper, and I couldn't be bothered to go and find patches. It was full of holes. So I took my crochet needle and I started crocheting around every single hole and every single stain of that jumper. And I wore the jumper, and within, I don't know, a few minutes I had orders literally coming through. So then I took that jumper and all of my other broken jumpers and I crocheted around them, and I took them to the Cross where I was selling the textiles. And within one afternoon we went on a waiting list, and then within a month we were selling in Browns, and then in Henry Bendel's in New York, and in Takashimaya, and in various other places. So it was completely accidental, and it had absolutely nothing to do with recycling at that point. It was all to do with memories. Yeah, 2000, I did my first London Fashion Week as an exhibitor, and this issue of quality and different markets reacting differently. Japan was worried about secondhand. Suddenly a whole load of stockists wanting the pink one and not the beige one, and all these things that at the time, it's a little easier now. People know about upcycling and recycling and the unique thing. Then it was a little bit harder. I was put in touch with an Italian manufacturing company called Miles, who produce knitwear for really some of the best and most important names in the fashion industry, and it's in the northeast of Italy. And I went, the lady who owns the factory is a hoarder, she'll keep everything. And she said, I have these amazing cardigans for you. I want you to take these amazing, amazing cardigans. And I went into the factory when they were producing. It was in full production. And I was shown the factory by the Signora Hermana, who looked after all of the production. And she was saying, your cardigans are somewhere over there, but these are the machines, and and I could just see this stuff on the floor, sleeves and bits and squares and color charts and pockets and something with a ladder and something else with a ladder, and I was saying, no, wait. She was saying, look at it. What are you looking at? Your cardigans are over there, neatly folded. And I started patching myself with the stuff that was on the floor, and I just saw recognition in her face. She knew exactly what I was talking about. And so she grabbed my hand and we literally ran after the rubbish van, and we saved these 4 bags of amazing cashmere, backs and sleeves or whatever. So I've been working with this particular factory ever since. In fact, it's very moving because they recycle for us rather the way that you would at home. So when I arrive there are these bags that say prepared for from somewhere. So they already know what I'm likely to want. what I'm not likely to want. They already have a system, which I tell them every year or season, you know, blue with brown this season, or thick with thin, or only thick, only thin. I'm a great accommodator. Some people really didn't want to know, and so it was really relatively easy not to tell them. You know, some people really didn't want to know, but really wanted the product. So, fine.
Yeah.
Most people really did want to know, and a lot of people like the story. I mean, I have a great division of the international buyer, you know, that I've learned in my early days at London Fashion Week. The ones that, if I tell them that they're going to be putting 20 kilograms of rubbish in their windows, will laugh, and they will be my client for a long time. And the ones that when I tell them you're going to be putting 20 kilograms of rubbish in your window, look at me like I'm insane, and I know they're not going to last very long. So I've had plenty of both. We have a very long history of stockists that have remained, you know, that we have continued working with for, you know, some of them literally 10 years. So, you know, some strong loyalties and strong understanding, and really pushing and supporting what we're trying to do. And the correlation between London Fashion Week and Estethica is very strong, because the British Fashion Council really started growing exponentially at the time when, coincidentally, Estethica started. But when we started Estethica, the British Fashion Council was in a very small office, and there were perhaps 5 people working there. So the team was tiny.
That was
now
like
it's
6 years ago.
2006.
Yeah.
It's now enormous. So we've grown. So they were incredibly brave to put us in there, and equally incredibly visionary in giving us the freedom to operate the way that we wanted to operate. And it is, if you go to London Fashion Week, you will feel something different in Estethica. There is, the biggest compliment that was ever paid to me about Estethica was that it's the only fair where people come out of it with a real sense of collaboration. So there will be collaborations between brands, strong friendships being forged, a lot of exchange of information. You know, who's your seamstress, where do you produce, where do you get this, let me help you, come over. So in that is different. And we have so far pushed some designers whom I think are as valuable as any of the new gen guys, or any of the new guys coming out, and that's Christopher, Henrietta, Ada, Veja we introduced to an international market, they were unknown before, and Lou Flux. I mean, really, some of the brands that we've picked and brought in there, I think deserved all the recognition, if not more so, because of their principles and practices. It's super simple. We do not any longer have a UK or a European industry, a manufacturing industry. Any money that can be diverted towards, I mean, it pains me. I did a project with Central St. Martin's last year. I had 80 students. Out of 80 students, not one of them had any interest in becoming, say, a pattern cutter, or an embroiderer, or a machine operator. They all want to be designers. This comes from having absolutely no emotional connection with who's actually making your clothes. So it's a huge paradox. The Industrial Revolution originates in the UK at the end of the 18th century with textiles. Okay, Smedley, Johnstone's, they really are the oldest factories in the world. Zilch. The second wave of the Industrial Revolution is in Italy, after, the turn of the century, and particularly so after the First World War. Gone. How do you enthuse a sense of, we can do it here, we can make it here, we can be self-sufficient without that kind of a background? And how do I realistically tell students that I'm teaching, you're not going to be a designer? Love, you're not going to be a designer. And how do I make them understand that it's much better paid to be a pattern cutter, but it's equally exciting, creative, poetic, interesting, wild, anything you want. That's what all European, and there are kind of fundings, but factories, mate. My first rule is extremely simple. Your grandmother. These shoes are my grandmother's. They're from before the war. My grandmother wore them every single day. My mother wore them every single day. I wear them every single day. So unfortunately, sometimes you need to look back to move forward. And for me, it's definitely inherent when it comes to a tip. My other tip is desire. I'm not a non-buyer. I totally buy. In fact, I'm going to probably wait and buy a piece from Dior's latest collection but wait, you know, we correlate having £5 in our pocket with buying clothes. For me, the idea is that you have to long, you have to fall in love, wait and desire, and that's the one key that I have to buying. And my third thing about clothes, unfortunately, is a total eco one. Just don't tumble dry. I've stopped tumble drying 2 years ago, and you wouldn't believe, it's like frizzy hair, non-frizzy hair. You don't tumble dry, non-frizzy hair. You tumble dry, it's just Jimi Hendrix all the way for me. So I know it's a bit.
And so that's because you think it damages the clothes and they don't
damages the
last as
clothes,
long
damages the
quality.
environment, completely useless. There's nothing more delicious. I mean, you know, mine is all about emotional engagement. I emotionally engage with this glass, or, you know, it's the way that I am. Hanging out, the smell of your house. The house smells different when you hang your clothes inside it. It's kind of vintage as it should be. It's shabby chic, as detest shabby chic. But the smell, I mean, people say that you can sell a house better if you put the smell of fresh coffee. Well, I'd say the smell of fresh laundry is also, it's comforting, it's beautiful, your clothes look better, you smell better, the house smells better. It's just a completely discovered pleasure, and I'm keen to pass that one on.